Good afternoon. This is the first time we are having an event like this in the city of Lowell. And we hope that with all your help, this will be something that we'll be doing every year. First of all, I would like to thank all the people who participated and collaborated towards making this possible. We have Ms. Correa, Mrs. Humphrey, students Amy Baxter, Nicole Chanquet, Laura Rodriguez, Veronica Rosado, Teresa Botan, Cole Cullen, Madeline Leahy, Kevin Lopez, Onose Omoyani, Diego Peña, Chantal Perez, Andre Regal, and many organizations who are here joining us today. Thank you for your help, and Linda, thank you so much for your help and for being here for our students. And again, good afternoon, and welcome to the Youth Housing Conference at Lowell High School. My name is Dr. Bejar, and I am one of the house deans here at Lowell High School. Before we begin, I would like to thank all of you for joining us as we begin this important and urgent conversation about the housing crisis. I would like to thank the head of school, Mr. Brian Martin, for his support and commitment to this issue and to making sure Lowell High Schools receive the support and resources they need in order to meet and exceed their potential. His leadership has been transformative in creating an environment where discussion and solutions are possible. I would like to also welcome Mr. McGovern, the Assistant City Manager. And I would like to thank all the organizations who are here supporting our students. Your presence here today symbolizes an important first step in recognizing and deal with this serious crisis and its adverse effects on students. High schools should be a positive and life-changing experience for our students. But for far too many students, high school is filled with challenges and obstacles born from crisis. More than 30% of people in Lowell experiencing homelessness are unaccompanied youth. Many of our students at LHS spend time couch surfing or moving from shelter to shelter without a base or a stake in the society. Together, we must devise an approach to help our students take their fair place and a stake in our community. Today, we hope to take the first step in doing that as a beginning, a conversation to create solutions. Would you please join me in welcoming Mr. McGovern?
Just quickly, I think that everybody deserves a pat in the back here. I mean, the number of students that are here for after school where you could be out, playing with your friends or doing whatever. I mean, I think it's a great tribute to how committed to you are. Usually when I was here back in 85, I think it was, the only reason I was staying after was probably over in B House, but great for you guys. This is a very serious issue that I think has probably come to the surface over the last maybe 5 years or so. Linda King, who works for the city, has been doing this her entire career, working with homeless adults, young adults at this point now. I think there was a story in the Herald that I was reading yesterday that they estimate somewhere around 21,000 homeless youth and young adults in the Commonwealth, which is mind-boggling. I mean, I can't even imagine. And on a personal note, I used to work up at Greater Lowell Tech, and I was talking to the head of school this morning about this, and we used to see it quite a bit up at Greater Lowell Tech. And the one thing that amazed me was the perseverance. I have no idea what I would have done if I was in some of the situations that the youth found themselves in up at school. And there they were coming to school every single day. And that was unbelievable. Like I said, the commitment and perseverance, and I just could not comprehend how they did that, and it's a tribute. Now, having said that, there's no reason why that should be happening. We're here in the city. We're committed to doing whatever it takes, the resources that we have will apply to this problem. Hopefully, we can get this squared away, get it solved. It's going to take time. I do not think that this is going to happen overnight. This is going to be a long process. But I think if we all work together, we can make that happen. The one thing I notice here in the city of Lowell is that no matter what it is, when groups come together, they put their mind to something, it usually happens. The head of school, the former city manager, can probably really attest to this. I mean, the projects that happen in this city when people get together and collaborate, it usually gets done. So having said that, I'm glad you're here. This is one of the first steps, and I'd like to introduce the head of school, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern, and please thank City Manager Murphy for his support and for you to take the time to come over today. I would ask all of our students if they could think of anyone of their peers that anyone they've ever heard of that was homeless during their teenage years, if they wanted to be homeless during their teenage years. Everyone wants to have a place, an environment where people care about them, where they have support, where they have an opportunity to succeed. And I believe that the mission of this committee, which everyone would always hope that you don't have to have committees like this, but the mission should be that no student at Lowell High School or Lowell Public Schools or in the Commonwealth or anywhere in the country should have to experience that. But at the end of the day, that does happen. And what we've tried to do at the high school is charge our deans and our social workers and our guidance counselors and our staff to know where every single student is, and so that we can account for them, so we know what their circumstances are. So if and when there are situations where students need that support, that they're in a difficult place in their life, that we are aware of it, and we can then put a plan in place to support them. And that's what Lowell High School's mission is all about, is if the students receive that support and have an opportunity to be in a safe environment where there's a nurturing adult, hopefully, and support to come to school every day, then they will have an opportunity to get their high school diploma and go on and be successful. But I do think there's one of the programs that we're delighted that we're a partner with is Youth Harbors. About 2 years ago, we were approached by Youth Harbors and the team to place a staffer here to assist us. And we were taken aback by the number of students that they felt fell into this category. We actually would double or triple what we actually thought as an administrative team. And so we became much more aware of the students that we were missing, but it wasn't as if they were dropouts. They just had very difficult time in their life where we couldn't find them. And eventually, as we learned from students what the circumstances were and all the needs that they had, we've been able to work with Youth Harbor and our social workers and all of our team to address the needs of a lot of our students. So we're really delighted that we've been able to partner with Youth Harbors. Mrs. Nancy Humphrey is here now, who was one of the guidance counselors way back and then retired and came back and is like our best reliever here, coming in to support everyone. Nancy Humphrey is now in the position as the homeless liaison, and we're thrilled that you're part of our team again, Nancy. It's really important. And so I honestly believe if we work collaboratively with the Mass Coalition for the Homeless, with Youth Harbors, with our Lowell Public Schools, with CTI, we can all do everything possible to help as many students that are in need. And I have a lot of confidence in our community. And the last thing I would suggest to us, particularly to our students today, is that I just took my I voted sticker off my lapel. There's early voting going on now. And I voted over at City Hall in the mayor's reception room. But I can't emphasize enough, as young people going off into the world, once you're 18, you're eligible to vote, that you need to understand and follow legislation that supports the homeless students, but with housing and jobs and health care. And you should follow who the legislators are and what part of the legislation is important to our community. And start to vote and start to write letters to the legislators, not just locally with the city council and the staff there, but with your state legislatures and your federal officials. Because when they hear from you, if you've had that experience, it's the real world experience that will help them make decisions going forward to perhaps support programs that are going to help everyone. And so if I can have any message for you young folks, follow the issue. And perhaps your efforts can help with some students down the road. So with that, I want to thank Ms. Veha, and I will turn the microphone over to our class president, Anase. Are you next? You are. Anase Aman, lead class president.
I just want to once again echo the sentiments expressed by Mr. McGovern, Mr. Martin, and Dr. Veha, and thank all of you for being here today as we begin this really important conversation about youth who are experiencing homelessness, particularly in the Lowell public school system, and how that affects their education. I think it's important for us, not only because it is so urgent and it does affect so many, or a very large amount of our students, that of course it shouldn't, but because it's right now it's rather difficult for students to seek out resources, either because they don't know that they exist or they don't feel comfortable seeking out those resources and advocating for themselves. So I think that the conversations we'll have here today, like this, okay. And so sorry, I apologize. Yeah. So I think that the conversations we're going to have here today by our wonderful panelists who are doing a tremendous amount of work to make those resources more known to our student body will do a lot to erode at the stigma that exists with regard to youth who are experiencing homelessness. Because it is something that is a byproduct of crisis, it is temporary, and so I think the programs that Mr. Martin had mentioned and that I'm sure we'll hear more about today are all resources available to make sure that we can do all we can to make sure that we make it as temporary as possible to provide, to ensure that students are able to meet and exceed their potential in the public school system. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I will now turn the mic over to Tula Sabanda, who has done a magnificent amount of work in establishing a national cohort of organizations who share information and do all that they can to be effective in creating solutions and policy. So thank you.
I just want to say, just to echo what everyone has said, thank you very much for having me here, and this is really an exciting time for this work. The attention that it's not only getting locally, but also the attention that it's getting on the national level. So I am Tula Sabanda, and I am the chair of the Merrimack Valley Homeless Young Adult Consortium. And so the consortium came out of an RFP that was put out by the state back, I want to say, in March of 2015. At this time, community teamwork, we assembled partners, we assembled youth harbors, we assembled UTech, Children, Friends, and Family outside of Lowell, there in Lawrence and Haverhill area, and also Lowell Transitional Living Center. We all came together to respond to this RFP. We saw that there was a need. There's a need. We needed to address this, the issue of youth homelessness in our community. We understood that one of the things that we understood that homeless youth, they often drift, don't have that concrete address. So we saw that this should really not be just a Lowell initiative. So we took it upon ourselves to make this a Merrimack Valley initiative. So we all came together and responded to this RFP, and we were awarded funds to start a demonstration project. Now, so since then, since May of 2015, we've been meeting together and assembling and really looking at region-wide, how do we begin to address this? What are some things that we can do? One of the key things right off bat that we understood, if we're going to do this work and do this work well, we needed a young adult voice. So we made it from the get-go and from the beginning to really include a young adult voice. We understood the way we've been dealing with youth homelessness obviously hasn't been working, because the numbers are telling us that it's not working and there's something that is happening that we are not looking at. and we are not addressing. And so we decided we needed youth at the table from the beginning. From the very onset, every meeting that we've had a young, strong young adult presence. They have been there to make decisions. We also, now we have a young adult advisory council that works with us in making decisions. Not only are we going to be providing housing support, case management, also looking at long-term solutions, but really our goal, our long-term vision and plans are not only provide housing supports, but to provide stabilization and prevention services. So as we are working and providing these supports like first and last month's rent, case management, things like services for fines, for arrears, just all the barriers that young adults face when they are housing unstable, we're also looking at it long-term. On a national level, there's other counties like Nashville. They're way more progressive than us. You know, they've got housing models, the housing first models that they're doing. So we've really been, we've been taking our time in the process to take a look at what else is going around the country nationally and what is it that we can mimic here in our region. So really our hopes are that by next summer, we are going to have a long-term sustainable model for providing youth that are homeless, for providing them long-term solutions to being housing and stable. So not just dealing with it from a crisis point of view, but really dealing with it from a prevention aspect so that we can begin to eliminate young adult homelessness. So, like honestly said, you know, we've got a great panelist, so you guys will really hear just in continuing that important piece of young adult inclusion and young adult voice. So we will have a panel of young adults, and they'll be able to tell you from their voices and their perspectives. I think that's really important. I think we can create all the programming we want to, but if we don't hear from the young adults who are really experiencing or who have experienced homelessness, we won't even really begin to grasp and understand how to combat the issue and how to provide the necessary and appropriate services. I think now next is Madeline, right? And she's going to be introducing our keynote speaker for this afternoon.
Hello, I'm Madeline. Right now, I'll be introducing Tina Giarla. Tina is a community organizer and legislative advocate, and she is a Massachusetts Coalition for Homeless Youth.
Can everyone hear me? I'm pretty loud in general, so the microphone kind of gets obtrusive. So if you need me to speak up, just do one of these in the audience, and I'll be sure to raise the voice. My name is Tina Giarla. I am a community organizer and legislative advocate for the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless. This is about my year and a half that I've been an employee there, but I was also an advocate and a volunteer and an intern throughout my higher education, working on unaccompanied homeless youth issues and actually spearheading we were spearheading the Unaccompanied Homeless Youth campaign, which was finally to address the needs of unaccompanied homeless youth who are experiencing homelessness, at risk of experiencing homeless, or found themselves in a crisis immediately and at that moment of time. We initiated many different things to try to count and tally and target and find this population. Through all the hurdles and barriers, we found that it was really hard. It was really hard to address this population because this population was a population known as the invisible. We were invisible. And what I mean by that is that no two unaccompanied homeless youth, to teens, to young adults, look the same. And I mean that in the sense that you couldn't walk down a street or in a high school and say, that person right there might be homeless. Or that person right there is definitely experiencing homelessness. Because there wasn't a sign, there wasn't absolute things or red flags that made it really clear that someone lacked a permanent place to stay. And I joined the Coalition for the Homeless a couple of years ago after my journey brought me there. I grew up in Florida. I moved to Boston to attend Salem State University, but it was a really, really hard journey to get there. At the age of 13 years old, my father passed away. He was a drug addict, and at the time of his life, drugs were very important to him, and he overdosed. Shortly after, my mother went to prison for about 3.5 years. And right before that time, she was in and out of jail for drug charges or driving without a license, but it was something called a habitual offender, and she was put in prison for just under 4 years, so 3.5 years. I was 13 years old. So I was in 8th grade, my father passed away, my mother was incarcerated, and I was left with chaos. And not just like the typical chaos where people all come together and they decide, oh, we're going to put all of our resources together and make sure that despite all the terrible things that you've gone through within the last year, but also the 10, 12 reoccurring years of living in poverty. That wasn't necessarily the response that I received. I was an unaccompanied homeless youth at the age of 13 years old, and what that meant was I was couch surfing. I wasn't living with my relatives constantly, and nor were they my guardians. So one week I was living at my grandmother's house in her own subsidized unit, who was not allowed to have any other people there. The following week my things were packed up before I got home from school, and I was at my aunt's house, sleeping on the couch, or sometimes not even sleeping at all, because it wasn't a place for me to be in that was healthy for myself, but I was also cohesive with what I wanted to be in the future, which was not someone like my parents, which was someone that was successful. Throughout high school, I decided to wear this mask, and I'm sure a lot of you in this room understand what I mean by that. When you have friends in this group, an athlete over here, upperclassmen that you're friends with, you decide to kind of morph yourself and change yourself to kind of fit that appearance. And I was constantly doing that. I was a chameleon. No one knew what was going on at home. And I made a really good job at hiding it. Things got more and more chaotic as my mom got out of jail and then went back to jail, or my relatives were fighting because I was a burden and they couldn't afford to take care of me, but nor were they mentally capable or financially able to take care of another child when them themselves were already living in poverty and already at risk of becoming homeless themselves. I continued to wear that mask every single day until it was in my junior year of high school. So that's 8th grade, summer of 8th grade, freshman year, sophomore year, and my junior year. And in my junior year, it was just a catastrophe. In between that time, my grandfather was able to take me in. He was about 60 years old and had some health issues, but I was willing to take care of him while I could, for as long as he was willing to house me stably. It was a great situation. He loved me, he helped me, he understood the trauma that I went through as a young adult and as a child losing her parents, and he really took me in, him and his wife. My life did a complete 180. I went from not having transportation to school to having a car that I was driving myself to and from school, to and from basketball practice, to and from all my tutoring sessions, tutoring middle school students. And all these little activities I made sure to incorporate in my life to stay focused, to stay positive, but also to really fit in with my peers. Unfortunately, that didn't last too long. It was about, I want to say, 3 months after he moved out of his small unit into a 3rd bedroom where I had a bed of my own, clothes of my own, and I actually felt like a normal 15-year-old girl. One day I left for work, I said, I love you, for school, I said, I love you, I gave him a kiss, I went to school. I got a call at 9:25 in the morning that he passed away. And this was sudden. I said goodbye to him that morning at 6:15 when I left for school. And I came back at 10:30 to my grandfather no longer with us. That stability that I gained in just for 3 short months again came crashing back down. Now, as you can imagine, young adults, they move. Parents, people in this room may have moved from a different high school, may have moved from different homes while attending high school. But this was something much different. This was, again, a catastrophe. My foundation was cracked. I had nothing. And so at this time, I had two options. My first option was to leave, to flee, to continue to live in this scary world that no one knew about, and come to Boston, Massachusetts, where my father's family all lived. And this is a huge family that lived up here. Now, mind you, I'm a junior in high school at this time. Or I had to swallow the reality that I couldn't do it alone. And all that effort to try to hide my story and hide my struggles wasn't doing me any good. It was making me constantly relive the chaos day in and day out without anyone to confide in. Now, of course, I had my friends who knew the circumstance, who understood what was going on, but what could they have done? They're kids my age, living possibly with the same instability, but not really knowing what to do. Probably because they didn't know of the resources that were out there, or they were afraid to say anything and jeopardizing what I had thought I had. So one day, after confiding in my guidance counselor and my teacher, a little bit at a time, not too much, but they knew that there was really something wrong with a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old taking a yellow cab to and from school alone. It just didn't make sense, especially when there were services like bus transportation and things of that nature. But I had to take a taxi, and I had to hide the fact that I was considered an unaccompanied homeless youth because I didn't have a parent to advocate for me. I didn't have my mom to sign all the necessary paperwork that said, hey, we moved again for the 5th time, and now she needs a bus from this address. I just couldn't physically do that myself. And if I did that, those red flags would start to be raised. So after confiding in the guidance counselor and the teacher throughout that time, I decided to come forward. And I said, listen, I'm about to be shipped to Boston after working so hard here my entire life if I don't find help. If I don't find something out there to get me just to school tomorrow. That's step one. So the next day, my guidance counselor or my teacher called me first thing in the morning. Do you need a ride? Can I come and get you? Yes, I do need a ride. Do you have basketball practice this afternoon? Do you have tutoring? What is your schedule, and how can we work with you? Because after all, they saw how hard I worked to get where I was at. I wasn't the young adult who was acting out, who was misbehaving, who didn't want to be at school, who didn't want to learn, who didn't want to succeed. Yeah, sure, at times I probably had a bad attitude, but really, who wouldn't? I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't in a nurturing environment, and I definitely wasn't getting the proper nutrition or even supports necessary to have someone wake up happy or have someone have a positive outlook for the day. Though I did my best to hide that I was upset or tired or hungry, I never really tried to really show it. So after those two guidance counselors pulled all their resources, the teacher and the guidance counselor pulled all their resources together, this magical pamphlet, just a pamphlet, showed up on my guidance counselor's desk. And it is exactly what this community is trying to do here. It brought a village together of community organizations and agencies within the city that I lived to respond to this epidemic that just came out of the blue. But we all know that homelessness just doesn't happen out of the blue. That there were probably many of red flags, plenty of people in our lives that have had these struggles and had these instances where if the right minds were together, this may have been able to be addressed sooner. I was in my senior year. I was facing that housing instability and that homelessness since 8th grade. And actually quite sooner than that, as parents who were living with addiction issues, who were extremely poor. My sister and I really didn't have everything we needed growing up ever. So as a senior, and this pamphlet came over across me and said, "Are you homeless?" Now any 17, 18-year-old young adult would say, "No, I'm not homeless. Absolutely not." But why was that? Why would we think that? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is what? Because homeless people are addicts. Homeless people did want to be homeless. Homeless people did something in their lives to deserve to be homeless, right? Those are the kind of negative connotations that we hear and we see our friends in the community at times and people that just don't understand what homelessness is. And so immediately, as the young adult that I was with an attitude, I was like, I'm not homeless. No, this isn't what it is. Like, I'm coming here to talk to you, and you bring this pamphlet to me that says I'm homeless. Like, what are you doing? You just want to turn me away. Being so close to my guidance counselor, she was able to kind of like snap at me and like put me in my place and realize that, all right, maybe I should actually open the pamphlet. Maybe I should really look at what this pamphlet entails. So I opened this pamphlet up, and it says, are you homeless? Are you an unaccompanied homeless youth? Do you lack a permanent residence? Are you couch surfing on friends' or family's couches? Do you not have a fixed place to stay? And are you not living with a guidance counselor, your guardian, thank you. And so now I'm defeated. My whole entire scheme to hide my story, to hide my struggles, to have this mask so thick and impenetrable was penetrated. It was ripped off my face, and I was absolutely exposed. In that moment, I lost control. I was crying because it was almost a breath of relief. There was a definition. There was an actual definition of someone like myself. And in that moment, I realized that I wasn't alone. That I wasn't the only one that was going through this if an entire community of resources had to come together and help someone. Now, this was back in 2010, 2011, and now we're in 2016. So much has changed in that time. From it just being pamphlets being packed around to define what a homeless student may be, to now communities coming together to be able to create models in response to what homelessness is. So at that time, I continued to reveal what was going on, and I had a support team come forward and help me. Luckily, I did all this work myself to try to stay afloat. I had a job. I was working part-time. In this short amount of time, I secured a place to stay with my best friend and her family. But again, her family's parents were not my parents. They did not have any obligation to take care of me, nor were they my guardians. My mother was in prison and still had no say in what I was supposed to do or how I moved forward in my life to exit poverty, to exit homelessness. So at this time, they realized that I've kind of done a great job. I did a pretty good job building this resume, building a resume that was helping students, middle school students. I was an athlete. I worked part-time, and I was president of a couple different clubs. And that entire time, I was just staying busy. I was staying busy for as long as I could, so I didn't have to go back to a place that wasn't home. Nor was it healthy, and nor was I welcome. So really, at the end of the day, all that was left for me to do was to apply to college. A 4-year university was not in my future, nor was really a community college. I was thinking, these are tens of thousands of dollars. I don't even have enough money to pay rent. I can't afford a car, and you want me to afford college. And then again, I was kind of told, you don't know everything, and you need to listen to us. There's this thing called FAFSA and financial aid, and you're going to go to college. That your path in life does not stop here. So I filled out all these scholarships that were for adversity and overcoming obstacles, and I was rewarded scholarships, just money. It was free money at that for college, right? The answer to my problems. So I went to college. And as I was attending Salem State University, people were reaching out to me, specifically the National Association for the Education of Homeless Children and Youth. And I was awarded a scholarship through that program, but what we were doing was we were finally discussing unaccompanied homeless youth. That we were finally addressing that these young adults need the help, they need the wraparound services, and they need the village behind them to make it to where they need to be. Because every day, each and every one of us in this room can say something positive about ourselves. We invest in ourselves every single day, whether it's a nutritious meal, when it's getting enough sleep at night, whether it's studying for an exam, doing well on your SATs, preparing for college. We are all doing what we need to do to better our lives in the future. Some of you in this room probably or may have housing stability. And some people in this room may know of people who don't have housing stability, but are probably doing the best while they're in the same classroom as you to try to have a better future for themselves as well. So we brought together this entire coalition of people to address it and to talk about it and to lay down the foundation of what needs to happen, what needs to be there for unaccompanied homeless youth. And it was a plethora of different things, from housing to support services to case management to job training to access to higher education to rebuilding their trust, their love, and their confidence in themselves. So that conversation was finally being made, and people were listening. So as I joined the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless, they spearheaded this bill, the Unaccompanied Homeless Youth Bill, and this was 2012, 2013 that they were working on this. And my job as a community organizer now was kind of what I was doing back then as an intern and just as an advocate. I was sharing my story, just like I am with you today. That as you look at me, you may not have never have guessed that I was an unaccompanied homeless youth for about 5 consecutive years. And that no matter how hard and how much effort I put into tomorrow, housing instability and homelessness could be right there as well. So it's an ever-revolving door. And though my life has changed significantly and I have an amazing job and an education, we all know that homelessness can happen to anyone. Anyone can experience homelessness. It does not discriminate, and it does not care who it takes down with them in their path of destruction. So it's exciting to be here because now these conversations are being made. And not only are they just conversations and maybe thoughts in the air, these are lucrative decisions that are being put forth. Money is being allocated, decisions are being made, and it's almost absolutely unacceptable for anyone to turn a blind eye to an unaccompanied homeless youth or a young adult who's experiencing homelessness. In this village, these people in the room today, these are all the simple investments that this bill that was successfully passed and the money that was put into a budget in Massachusetts was made for. It is a collective campaign, it is a collective audience, and it is going to make a difference. Because now, 5 years later, I'm 24 years old, and I'm glad to know that there's no one that has to hide, that there is no one that needs to be afraid to come forward because these services are not available to pick their pieces up. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm from Malden, Massachusetts, and I'm a graduate from Malden High School.
Hi, I'm Joe Perez. I'm from Lowell, Massachusetts, and I attended Youth Lowell.
Hi, my name is Mason Hernandez. Graduated last year from Lowell High.
Okay, I think that's good. All right, so just our first question for our panelists. You guys can go in any order you like to answer. If you guys would just want to talk about some challenges that you've maybe encountered while trying to find stable housing and how you've overcome those challenges.
I would like to start off by saying one of the first challenges was getting a job, because I knew that that was something I had to get done, because if I stayed without a job, I was never going to move forward, I was never going to move up, and I was in a state of mind that, you know, if I can't provide for myself, then who will provide for me? So that was one of those challenges that I had to overcome, and not only that, but finding a job that can pay enough so I can actually be somewhere. That's one of the biggest challenges that I had to go through, is finding a job that can actually supply what I need.
So one of the biggest challenges I had to face, I think, would be explaining it to my close friends, explaining the situation that I was going through, trying to find support, basically trying to find a place to stay, going from friends' houses or going from my family members' houses, and also finding a job. It was also very important to have money, and not only that, but when I was going from house to house, I was indifferent. You got to think about it. I have friends from a variety of places. Actually, I have friends here in Lowell. I was actually at one point in Lowell with a couple of friends that were going to UMass Lowell, and they were helping me out for a while. And you think about it, I'm from Malden, so it's also like, where am I gonna work and I'm homeless, you know what I mean? Or am I gonna go to school? I'm going to high school. I was supposed to graduate in 2014. I was actually in an abusive relationship, and it went downhill from there. So I ended up being homeless, and yeah, so I think like the most struggle that I had was, work, getting people to actually understand where I was coming from, getting people like to know like the struggle of having that stability when you go to work or when you go to your school, or you know what I mean? So that was probably, I guess, the biggest.
Well, I agree with them. I can easily say that trying to find a job is one of the main priorities for me. Also, one of my big challenges I've been through was myself, pretty much. Emotionally, physically, and mentally. Throughout, let me just start off by saying I was kicked out of my house when I was, 17, due to violence in my household, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Ever since then, when I say dealing with yourself, it's like I was couch surfing, going from house to house, friend to friend, couch to couch, room to room, and it messes you up in your head, I thought to myself, who am I? What am I? Look at myself, like, now I don't have anybody but myself. At the end of the day, you don't have anybody but yourself, And things that I was thinking to myself was like, what now? What now? There was times where I felt like I was a loser. There was times where I felt worthless. There was times where I felt like a waste of space in someone's couch. It messes you up mentally, So, having these opportunities like Youth Build, schools that provides these opportunities, it's a blessing. It really is, because not everybody gets that opportunity, Not everybody's homeless, and the people that are homeless, not all of them have these opportunities, like I said, But, it's very wrecking. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard.
Great. Well, thank you guys for sharing. You mentioned that, not everybody has these opportunities. Can you guys speak to through your experiences, where you see some gaps, where more services could be provided, in what areas to support?
Personally, I think that there should be places where we should feel comfortable enough to come to speak out to people, because I think that's the main problem here, is we're so ashamed. Me, myself, I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. And just like, us that are up here right now, and those that are going through it, we're embarrassed. That's not something you want to go and start telling everybody, because they're going to look at you a different way. They're going to see you a different way. When I started telling, those people that I kind of trusted, those very few people in my life that I trusted, they looked at me and they turned away. They didn't want nothing to do with me, And I feel like if we have places that we can all just go to, those that are going through it, the homelessness, the struggles, the battles that we go through, that we would feel a little bit more secure, a little bit more safe. We would have that sense of, yes, we have somewhere to go to at the end of the day, so that, we we won't be on the streets and thinking, oh, what are we gonna do next? Where are we gonna go? And so on and so forth.
To answer that question, I feel like going through my high school years, I never really wanted to tell anybody at first, you know, like we've been all saying, it's shame, we feel shameful, we feel like no one is in our shoes, we feel like we're the only ones, we feel like, you know, like for me, for example, to get back to when I was in an abusive relationship, he'd be like, oh, you're gonna be homeless, you're gonna be like your parents, like they both are on Section 8 and this and that, and you're not gonna be anything, and then, you know, you start to think about like, like, maybe I just deserve to be homeless, or like, you know, like when he would kick me out in the below zero weather, and I'm sitting out there by myself, like, on the streets, like, and I'm young now, I think I was like 17, 18 years old, I'm 20 years old now, so like 2 years ago, and just anybody, no matter what the age, no one should be in that position. But I think a big issue for me, and even now that I'm facing, is quite honestly, I'm still having issues actually to this day. You know, like my family, going through like being homeless through my years, I have picked up a bad, you know, depression, and I've gone through alcohol addiction. It runs in my family, and I'm sad to say that I've been through some really nasty times because of where I've been in this epidemic. And to get back to subject, I have ADHD, so stay with me. But to get back to subject, one of the issues that I'm dealing with right now is I'm scared. Because right now, I actually, to get to a personal level, I'm going to be staying with one of my close friends because me and my dad are fighting again. So it's like you just kind of go through the same things, you know, in your life until you find that stability that you need. And the issue that I'm scared about is shelters. And I feel like, you know, like shelters, they say that they're like, you know, if you're going to an adult one, like, because if you're like 18 years old, you're going to an adult place, and, you know, they say that the adult places are nasty and they're not, you know, good, you know what I mean, and that scares me, so, like, I almost wanted to go into one, because I was like, what else am I gonna do, you know what I mean, like, might as well just go to a shelter and try and weigh out my options. I feel like we should have, like, I don't know, I feel like we should learn more about the shelters and put more work into our shelters, I guess, because sometimes it does result to that. Sometimes kids or young adults have to go to a shelter. They have no other choice. And so, like, I feel like we are scared of these places, and you know, I think that's one big issue. In school, when I was younger, I didn't really have anybody to talk to, and I feel like what he was saying, we should have a place where we could, you know. Like, when I met Youth Harbors, literally, it just came to me. Like, I was explaining to my counselor. I was like, I just got out of an abusive relationship. I don't want to come to school. I don't want him to think that I'm cheating on him. I'm just not going to go to school, because he would tell me I was cheating on him. So I wouldn't want to go to school. And this is before I became homeless and whatnot. But they said that this place, Youth Harbors, these people, they can help you. They're, you know, with resources and, you know, domestic violence, if you're going through it, or anything. They have so many resources for you. And so to have that more in schools, you know, it's just so big. It starts there, you know, just to have a reaching hand for you, know that somebody's there for you, you know, and your resources that you have, which is big.
I agree. Like what they said, shelters, more shelters. I personally don't think they should be called shelters, because when you think of shelters, you think of shelters. Like, you think of shelters, you don't think it's a good thing. And, yeah, they should be more places for students or anyone that are going through these struggles, you know, and definitely more locations. Like, not only there should be places like this in every single little city. Because everyone should hear about it, everyone should know about it, everyone deserves to know about it. And, I mean, that's all I'm gonna say.
So, if you could go back, knowing what you guys know now and, the services that you've been through, if you could go back to your high school self, like, what would you tell yourself? For those maybe that are in the audience or those that have friends that are going through housing instability and are in high school now, like, what would you say?
I mean, I'm not that old. I'm only 20, but if I could go back a couple
A
of
couple
years,
years.
if I could go back a couple of years, I would say, I would tell myself to get myself more involved with the school, that extracurricular activities. Yeah, it sounds nerdy, but looking back at it now, I would have kept myself out of a lot of trouble. Like, I'm pretty sure we all know what I'm talking about. And that's all I'm going to say to that.
I guess I would say to myself that almost the same thing. Yeah, just to get more involved and to actually speak with somebody. I think because I was so ashamed that I didn't reach out right away and I don't even like talking to counselors, so, when I'd go to the counselor's office, I'd be the one playing Uno, I don't really like to talk to people, so, I mean, and I'm 20 years old, I still do it, so, I don't know. I think basically what he said is very accurate, that we need to, try to get out there and, basically a closed mouth doesn't get fed, or a closed hand, whatever doesn't get fed, right? Like, you need to get out there and, like, try, because if you don't, no one's gonna know what you're going through, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's what I would have told myself. Get out there, talk to people, tell them what's going on and try and, like, get help,
I would tell myself the same exact thing. Be more involved in high school. More involved in the little things. Even the little things matters. Especially like something like this. This matters a lot. Because it gives you knowledge. Knowledge is power. And, that's one thing I made a mistake. When I was in high school, I'm only 18. But when I was in high school, I didn't really care about those things. All I cared about was getting through high school, partying, friends, the high school life, But those, like I said, those little things, getting involved, knowing about certain things like this helps. It really does. Try to get as much as you can. Learn as much as you can, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy.
So one of the things that I think all you three have touched upon is, that perception of the fear that you have of letting others know that you're homeless and the fear of shame that comes behind that. Do you want to talk to a little bit about how would you like to be perceived? You got this. Go ahead.
I mean, the image that I would like for myself and for other people that are homeless too, is that we're not bad people. I'm sure like what Tina said, not everybody's a bad person, not everybody's, done something to deserve it, not everybody's a drug addict, not everybody's, doing something wrong in your eyes to deserve what they're going through. Myself, I've been going couch surfing since I was 11, 12 years old. I was house to house, family, not family. Puerto Rico, I've been all the way out in Arizona. That's how bad it was, that you can't just see people in a certain way because of what they're going through. For me, it was more so walking down the street and knowing that people aren't even going to speak to you, even look at you, because you got a backpack on, you got like 3 or 4 jackets on, because you know that you're going to be walking all day. That's what I was doing before I got into Youth Build, And if I could change anything, it would be the image. Not everybody's a bad person. not everybody should be perceived, in a certain way because of what they're going through. And that's what I got to say.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say the same thing. Just basically, we're not bad people, I may have alcohol addiction that runs through my family, and I have struggled with it, but it doesn't make me a bad person. There's many out there that have gone through it. And like you said, looking at someone on the street that's sleeping on the street, you know what I mean? Like, they could have, even we range from 20, 18, younger to like 60. I see, it's so sad. I see people on the street, and, sometimes, I just say a prayer, you know what I mean? Because people just walk by, they just spit upon, they don't see us as human beings. They see us as, I feel bad for you. It's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate, but the way that people see us is a whole different thing, and it's really sad, because I really do agree with him 100% that we need to see that we are as the way we are is just as like you are. You know what I mean? We have been going through an issue. We've had issues in our life that we are overcoming in our own way. It doesn't make us different. We're all human, you know what I mean? So, same as him.
When I tell people that I'm homeless, I don't say it for pity. I don't want someone to feel bad for me, because it's not something, it happens. Things happen. It's life. It happens. Anything can happen. We're all human. We all go through things. Life is crazy. I just don't feel pity for people like that. We're all one. We're all human. We all go through things. And sometimes it takes certain people to have, it takes time. It takes those people to look up to other people to get through their days, it's
Now, just open it up to the audience. Does anybody want to ask a question?
I'm loud enough.
Okay, go ahead.
My question is for each panelist. If there is one positive thing or one word that you could describe yourself because of your experience, what would it be? I'll share mine after, but just want to hear.
One word. Just stronger.
Perfect.
Survivor.
Yeah.
better.
And mine's resilient. And because of those skills and everything that you've gone through, stronger, better, happier, successful, that's your future. And you'll continue to grow from that. And it's very important to take this experience and everything that you have gone through and to see how successful and where you're at today and what contribution you're giving to not only yourselves, but everyone in this room, from the city manager to the head of school, to advocates and community organizers, to the city of Lowell. It's invaluable, and so thank you.
You guys, so I'm Tula Spanda, and I'm here just representing community teamwork, and I oversee the adolescent services for community teamwork.
My name is Mao Kang. I'm the orange guy or the pumpkin for this month. It's just my uniform is bright, but I'm actually from UTEC. Not sure everybody familiar with UTEC. And I'm a street worker. It's another word for outreach worker.
My name is Eric Cousineau. I'm a social worker at the Department of Children and Families in Lowell, and I'm responsible for kind of creating a couple safe and supportive housing for older youth involved with the department.
My name is Dave Dorvillier, and I'm also a social worker, and I'm the program director for Youth Harbors. And we work with homeless and unaccompanied youth, 18 to 22 about, or also homeless and unaccompanied youth who are at risk of homelessness.
So just one, first question, what do you think are some in the work that you guys have been doing through your organizations, what do you see are some service gaps here in the city of Lowell for unaccompanied homeless youth?
The gaps I see, because I'm a social worker in DCF, the programs I've created are for kids that are open cases and involved with the department. But I can't tell you how many times I get a call from UTEC or somebody else, from Lowell High with a truly homeless kid, and I can't help them because my programs that we've set up are designed for those involved with DCF. And that's a frustration for me, and that's a definite gap because the kids that are truly homeless probably should have been involved with DCF, and they slipped through the cracks, and they had that mask on and didn't tell anybody. And it's unfortunate because had we got them when they were 17, 16 and got them into care, we could have really helped them out. So for me, that's a frustration and a definite gap.
Yeah, I think generally, kind of piggybacking off what you just said, a lot of transitional age young adults, 16 to 22, tend to fall into that area of not really having services catered to them. They're right on that cusp of not quite meeting certain types of services because of their age. And also, I think, just generally marginalized youth, such as the LGBTQ community.
Like maybe housing, job, for the young individual person that we work with, it's mostly job. What I mean? We have no money, and sometimes it's the lack of the resource that we have, and sometimes the resource that we might not have is because we can't serve them. What I mean? And I hate to turn people away, but we try to continue work with everybody. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't do it. If a person who's under the age of 18, it's mandatory for my agency, to all right, where's your parents? Why are you, homeless? So we got to report that. And when you're 18, all right, so where you're living, and then when we try to find a housing, there's a process, there's a step and all that. But like I say, fortunately, we got a great collaboration throughout the city, so we work things out.
So with those service gaps, what are some recommendations that you would make? What are some policy recommendations through the work that you've been doing to begin addressing those service gaps?
More hangout place for, they have Pathfinder. I don't know if everybody know Pathfinder. That's for the adult. But what about, like Tina said, what about the individual who's actually homeless in the high school? Like Tina said, you can walk into school, nobody even know that you're homeless. Because you play real well. And we do that, And I was homeless, on and off for 3 years myself, and we do play very well because of the embarrassment, the feeling that people look down at us, so we fit in, we've been there. And so what I think we should have is maybe program, counselor, within school, the Youth Harbor, that's very great, That's a very beautiful program right there because it's opened up the young brothers and sisters who's at the high school age level, to come forward. And but me as a part of UTEC, I actually outreach to them where they're at, through Tent City and all that other stuff. And so we introduce to our program, stuff like that. And we, help them with all the resources what we can with the collaboration through the city.
Well, one of the frustrations in policy I'd like to see change is when, if you guys are familiar with the wonderful court system, but they have what's called a CRA, which means a child requiring assistance. Used to be CHINS, child in need of services, but the problem with that is it puts a lot of the onus on the child. And you guys talk about being ashamed or embarrassed or wearing that mask, and it's very difficult because you walk in with a CRA and it's automatically you're the issue, where it's most likely was issues that are involved with your parents and there's domestic violence and substance abuse and all that sort of stuff going on in your home, but you're the one getting labeled and pulled out of your home because of the courts and in custody. So I think there needs to be more onus put on the parents and the families that are putting these kids in that situation. They've talked about making it FINS, families in need of services, but that hasn't happened. I've been in social work for 23 years. The court just throws custody at us, left and right, but it's just such a broader picture of what's going on, and the kid is the one that's paying the price because they're getting pulled around. Now, I say that, but at the same time, if you are 15, 16, 17 homeless, you shouldn't be. You should get involved with, talk to a guidance counselor, talk to someone that gets you involved with us. If we have to take custody, we will, but we'll look to a family member, an aunt, an uncle, a relative, maybe a good friend in school, but you get that support. You have a place to call home. And us as an agency, we need to focus more on, and we do it, and we're starting it, but we run around putting out fires a lot, but permanency for kids, and we see it, I work with the 18 to 22 population, and it's great that we keep these kids open until 22, but what are we doing for these kids until 22? Are we finding them a permanent person to be in their life? Sadly, I am a permanent person for a lot of these kids, because I work with them for so long, and I'm happy to be it, but I'm sad that I am their person, so we need to do a better job at finding them somebody that's gonna be their person, so.
Right, I echo a lot of those things that you guys have said. And one of the things that I would recommend is also being able to broaden what the definition of homelessness is. Because when we think about the federal definition of homelessness versus the definition that we're using of Massachusetts educational definition, there's a lot of young people who are not included in that definition. That includes those who are couch surfing. And, a lot of the population of students that we work with in youth harbors are those students who are couch surfing. They are those students who aren't going to shelters because, as some of our youth panelists described, like it's a scary place. And so, since those youth are not in shelters and they're not being included in the youth count, the scope of the issue is not as visible as we'd like it to be. And that's where we start to see some of those service gaps really come in. And that's where, like with Youth Harbors, we're able to work with those through the Massachusetts educational definition to work with those who are indeed couch surfing. But it presents as a challenge to what are some of the resources that are out there for them. Another one of the challenges is also being able to procure stable housing, is being able to also try to do family preservation if that's something that is a goal that we're looking to move towards. And also, how do we start to work with these young people to build the independent living skills that they need to be successful adults as they transition past the ages of 22, 24, and they're not seen as being young adults anymore.
Do you guys want to talk about how, like, if a young adult is homeless, how they can get in touch with your services?
Yeah, I'll start this time. You guys got to start last time. So with Youth Harbors, we have case managers who are in the high schools. And so at Lowell High, we do have a case manager named Katrina Garcia. And on the back of your flyers, on the bottom of the sheet, we have her name with her phone number, her cell phone number, and her office number. She's in email. She's always readily available. You would go ahead and you can go to her office directly or contact her directly. And then she'll just kind of go through a very brief referral process with you and intake and kind of assess, what are your needs? What are some of the things that we need to work on? First and foremost, we work on figuring out how do we make sure that you have a consistent place where you put in your head to a pillow. What is the long-term sustainable plan? And then start to fill in getting you to school, because our focus is on you guys being able to go through school, because education is invaluable. Where a lot of the youth that we work with have gone through different types of traumas. They've had things taken away from them, but education is something that someone can't take away from you. So we want to be able to keep you in school on an educational path while you have a stable place, so you can focus on being a high school student. And then transitioning to adulthood, whether it's post-secondary education, trade school, certificate program, whatever it is that you all work towards. So if you are, if you or yourself are going through some of these situations, if you know someone who's going through this, or maybe you haven't gone through it but you just want to know more about the scope of the issue and some of the resources that are there, then please, you can give Katrina a call. She's right down on the first floor. I think we're on the second floor right now. She's on the first floor, and just get in touch with her, and she's always readily available.
I would say for us, it's probably pretty intimidating to walk into the DCF office on Merrimack Street. So I would probably start with some of the many mandated reporters out there, which is guidance counselors, teachers, nurses, doctors, police officers, to speak up to them, and then they have them get in touch with us, or with them get in touch with us, because you can come down and tell you want to apply for volunteer. I'm homeless. I'm 16. I have no permanent caretaker. That's certainly a way to do it.
Who know where UTech is? Anybody here? Okay. So our program is actually right on Warren Street. It's 34 Warren Street. It's actually right across from the Lowell Courthouse. And so we do have our own agency. It's also a drop-in to certain programs. But as an outreach team, there's 3 of us. There's in Orange, like I say, pumpkin the whole year. You know what I mean? That was supposed to be a joke, but it didn't work. So yeah, our uniform is bright, so you can see us a mile away. And you're probably thinking we're a construction worker. We're not. It's a UTech on it and street workers on it. So we're outreach worker, and everything's all confidential. You know what I mean? And I encourage everybody to like. If you don't feel comfortable, you know what I mean, that's also confidential. You can just ask, hey, can I speak to this about certain things? You don't even have to open up, you know what I mean? But we'll work with you, you know what I mean? Everything is all your comfort level, and we'll connect whatever resources you need, you know, and everything is all on a D-low. Yeah.
And you can access Youth Build, we're right on 167 Dutton Street, or you can also go to Community Teamwork, and we is located at 17 Kirk Street, downtown Lowell. And if you want to access the Merrimack Valley Homeless Young Adult Consortium Services, so what's great about this is that you can go to Community Teamwork, you can go to Youth Build, you can go to UTech, you can go to Youth Harbors, and you'll be able to access through any of those 3 avenues here in Lowell, you will be able to access the Merrimack Valley Homeless Young Adult Services. So if you don't remember any of that, you can just go to any of them and, you know, you let them know what's going on, and they will be able to directly link you to this initiative that we have taking place. Do you guys, anyone have any questions in the audience? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Well, thank you all so much for coming out today. This has been a really exciting conversation. I hope that this is, you know, the first conversation, but really not the last conversation that we have. I just want to let you know some exciting things that we've got going on coming up with the Merrimack Valley Young Adult Consortium. So we are going to be looking at some of our long-term goals. We are looking at putting in a drop-in center. We've really heard that there aren't appropriate places for young adults to go, just simple things like shower, do laundry, get a meal, just to hang out. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working on. Keep a lookout. We're going to be doing community focus groups that we're going to go out to hear more of the services and the needs that young adults are facing out here in our region. So that's going to be coming out. And also, some of the things that we've been looking at, you know, we hear a lot that, you know, Youth Harbors is such a great job out here in Lowell, but we're also looking at in our other neighborhoods, like we talked about Lawrence and Haverhill, and really expanding the services of Youth Harbors out in those areas. And also we informed you guys that we have a Youth Advisory Council, so they really are going to be doing their own project, leading the Youth Advisory Council project, and really giving faces to the voices of homeless young adults. So we have a lot of great things planned, and while simultaneously doing this, providing housing services. So we are really excited, and thank you for, you know, to Linda and everyone that organized this, and you know, having us be a part of this. So we will continue, and we are very committed to really doing this work, and we will continue to do this work. And so you will be hearing more and more from us, and this will not be the last conversation that we have.